Hi, everybody. Ben Thorpe here with Farm Equipment Magazine, back for another episode of our Thought Leaders series. Today, here with Casey Seymour. Casey, can you give us a quick intro on who you are?
Yeah, I'm Casey Seymour. I work for John Deere dealer in Western Nebraska, 21st Century Equipment, and I have an article in the Farm Equipment Magazine there on the back page, and I also have a podcast called Moving Iron Podcast as well. So, try to keep my nose to the grindstone when it comes to what's happening in the marketplace.
Yes, and the column is kind of what caught my attention and brought us together here today to dive back into the topic with a little more detail. So, your article is called "The Lost Years: 2021 to 2023 Model Years Impact on the Future Equipment Supply." Can you kind of just give an overview on what the idea was there?
Yeah, so I think from what I've been looking at and what I've been seeing kind of develop here and how this works is that there's been obviously a shortage of equipment everywhere, whether it's new equipment, used equipment, whatever it is. And I started thinking about what's that impact look like when these years between 21 and 23 where there were manufacturing delays and cancellations and all these different things that come into play. The number of machines that are getting developed and put out to the marketplace is going to have an impact in the near future. You start looking 2 or 3 years down the road, what's that look like? And I think right now what we're facing more than anything is that we've got a lot of 1-year-old, 2-year-old stuff in the marketplace, but that middle of the road stuff, that 1,000, 1,500 hour, 2,000 hour tractor, the 500 to 750 hour combine, those kind of things. There's not a lot of those out there right now, and if you look at all the factors that come into play 2 or 3 years down the road, I think it's just going to be even that much worse because one, there weren't that many developed, and two, I don't think the appetite to trade on the onesie twosie side of the business is going to be as great as it once was, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Just the price of equipment and the price of used equipment and those kind of things, the throughput and depreciation, those kind of things are going to start to come into play more than what I think we've seen in the past.
And part of your article is kind of calling back to the glut that we saw after the 2012 to 2014. What do you refer to the epic years and with on-farm income? So what do you think we learned from the glut there, that how we dealt with that afterward? And are there any lessons from that we can apply to what's about to happen right now?
Well, I think what we see, what that was just a mass overproduction of inventory. It didn't matter what manufacturer even talking about there. I mean, they were as fast as they could build, they're putting it out. As much as they could build, they're putting it out. And there was the capability for the end user to buy a new combine in 2012 was significantly different than the capability of an end user to buy a combine in 2022. I mean, we're looking at $250,000 something versus a $500,000 or $600,000 something now. So I mean, you start really putting those into perspective and playing that out. I mean, your customer base was broader in 2012 than it is right now. I think some of the lessons learned, I don't know that we can really take what we learned there in 2012 through 2014 and apply it to what we see right now. I just think at the end of the day, what really applies to the overarching conversation here is that whether the principles are overproduction and we got so many new 1-2 year old used equipment, those kind of things coming into play, or we've got a limited supply coming into play, the principles of used equipment management and washout cycle still apply. And I think that's where we have to have those conversations moving forward is who the customers that you're going to go target for this used stuff. Who are the what's that buying structure look like? What's the payment structure look like? What are those different things all come into play? Start looking at. I mean, to me, nothing's really changed. It's how you manage it, how you price it, and those kind of things. That's all just fundamental 101 inventory management, washout cycle control. All those different things all come into play. None of that's going to change. I think where some dealers might get stung a little bit is trying to guess the market out 6-9 months, which I think everyone's got that problem right now, is looking at your order board and the stuff that you evaluated right now. What's that look like in 6 or 9 months, a year, when that new piece shows up? So I think that's where we could see some sting, and that's nothing that you can control. I mean, that's just you're making the deal, you're working through those things. What that conversation looks like to the customer when you're going through that process, how that all comes into play. That's a whole nother conversation about what the machine's worth in 6 or 9 months down the road.
Okay. And for dealers who are reading this and sharing with your sentiment, do you have any advice on any best practices they can apply as we move forward with this issue?
I mean, it's simple. I mean, the thing about used equipment is it's not hard. It just takes a lot of discipline. And I think that's where this is what this is. I mean, you have to look and see what your customer base looks like that you're going to sell that used equipment back into. How many can you sell? At what price point can you sell it at? And what's your time frame to hold that before you get to the next that next trade cycle, and what that looks like, next iteration of the trade cycle, what's that look like? So it's the same principles that were in play in 2012 through 2014. It's just maybe working with less numbers of equipment, less number of equipment, but significantly higher dollars. And I think that's where this is going to be some uncharted territory when you start looking at some of the stuff. I mean, you're looking at some pretty expensive used equipment out there, $400,000 or $500,000 used tractors, or combines anyway, for sure. Forage harvesters in that same era, you're looking at $400,000 to $450,000 row crop tractor. I mean, there's a lot of big dollar stuff out there. Conversation I had with a guy the other day, not too long ago, was, we used to have $20 million in used equipment. Now we got $20 million in one category. You know what I mean? So it's just a big spread of value and what that looks like. So I mean, it comes right back down to it. It's the exact same concepts that we saw in 2012, 2014. It's just you've got to adjust for whatever it is, but it's still the same principles that apply. And I think that's the one thing about used equipment management, is that it's not necessarily that hard to manage or used equipment. It's just the discipline in managing and doing the things you need to do when you need to do them. I think that's the hard.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. And something that caught my interest here at the very end of the article, you talk about your belief that the upgrade kit model will be the great equalizer. I was wondering if you could kind of expand on that, because I found that interesting.
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes back to what I'm talking about here a little bit. I mean, I think there could be some opportunities, and I'm a John Deere guy, so I'm going to use the John Deere for example. So if you start looking at how upgrade kits play in the situation, upgrading a planter, upgrading a sprayer, for example, those kind of things. I think you start looking around and start seeing what it might cost to trade something or upgrade to a newer used model or something like that. There's going to be some advantages to upgrading what you've got already from a powertrain perspective, and just adding that new technology to that. And I think there could be some significant savings there in the long run. Now, people are going to argue, like, a powertrain where you got an engine, a transmission, you've got hydraulic motors, I hear you on all those kind of things, and you can make those adjustments as you need, as you go through the spectrum of what you're looking at. But hypothetical numbers here, if you're looking at a $600,000 brand new something, or you can do the exact same thing to the machine that you've got from a technology standpoint for half that price, you start weighing that out a little bit. Maybe it's better to do that. I think the planter upgrade kit is a great example of where this is going to come into play. You start looking at a brand new planter versus an upgrade kit, and the upgrade kit's going to give you the new planter except for the bar, right? So if your bar is in good everything about it's in good strength, and everything about it's not cracked or bent or something like that, where there's some kind of structural issue, you can still use that same bar and just upgrade the planter row units. Well, you've got the new technology, you've got the things that you need. Maybe you don't need to spend the money on the new planter. You can get the upgrade kit for, again, half the price or whatever the number is. I think all of those come into play. And to me, I think that's, as you start looking at autonomous vehicles and how all that stuff plays into that, because in that time frame that we're talking about here, that 2000, 3 years down the road, 4 years down the road, 5 years down the road, we're going to see a lot more autonomous vehicles start popping up, and a lot more upgradability in certain platforms, whether it's tractors or planters or sprayers or combines or whatever it might be, that there could be that option to put the latest technology on what you already have without having to upgrade the entire platform to make that work. So if that happens, I mean, to kind of answer your question, if that happens, then all of a sudden this lack of equipment in those certain years don't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of takes care of itself.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, we've covered some good ground here. Is there anything else on this topic that we haven't touched on that's important, or any wrap up thoughts?
No, I don't think so. Man, I think the biggest thing here, guys, is just when it comes to managing used inventory, it's the discipline in doing so, understanding what your market trends look like, and understanding what those customer base looks like. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the same struggle that we went through in 12 through 14, and 16 through 20, and everything else. But it's that same principle that comes into play. Understanding what you've got, how many people you can sell it to, and how long it's going to take you to hold it. And those are just all the basic fundamentals of used equipment management. If you follow those and are disciplined in those actions, you're going to be fine.
Great. Well, thanks for talking to us today, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thanks, Ben, for having me. I appreciate it.